Hello and welcome to the Care It Out Sleep Show, a podcast for tired parents who are searching for a bit more sleep the caring way. I'm your host, Kerry Secker, infant sleep consultant, founder of my unique sleep approach, Care It Out, and your caring sleep supporter. I really hope you'll join me on my mission to get Smalls a settled night's sleep without the tears, training or techniques. I love talking about sleep and I can't wait to share my sleep subjects with you. My approach to getting you more sleep is simple, straightforward, but above all, it's got to make sense and feel best for you. Ready to get more sleep? Then let's get started. Hello and welcome to the Care It Out Sleep Show. You are listening to your host, Kerry Secker. I hope you are really well. And I really hope you enjoy this podcast, whether you are a seasoned sleep show stalker and have listened to every single episode out there. I think this is episode 23 now. We grow so fast. Or you have just tuned in to the podcast for the first time. I really hope you enjoy it and find it interesting. Going to be doing something a little bit different for this podcast. I talk a lot about sleep, in case you hadn't realised. That's because I'm really passionate about it. And I also talk about a lot of things for you. So I thought it was about time it's going to be a short podcast episode, I hope, but a short episode about how Care It Out came about and me and my approach and how I got started. And some of you, I asked on Facebook and Instagram if you had any questions that you would like to ask. This seems to be a really popular thing where I put on my stories or on a post, do you have any questions that you would like me to answer in the podcast? And I get sent loads, and it focuses me on the podcast, and I really enjoy talking. I hope that comes across and answering questions. So I've got 5 questions as well from there. But let's start with who am I? So I am a massive lover of yellow, play on words, my puns, and I love a good denim shirt. The little tidbit about me there. But I'm also Kerry Secker, infant sleep consultant and founder of my unique sleep approach, Care It Out. And Care It Out I really do feel is very different and very unique because I didn't get taught this. I'm going to talk about this more later in the episode. And I really am on a mission to get as many families as I can a settled night's sleep with no tears, no training or techniques. All I ever want for a family, it brings me so much joy, is that you get more sleep. It's not about pushing your small to join the sleep through crew, though that sometimes happens if your baby or your small is biologically ready and capable of doing that. I'm all about just finding a sleep situation that is sustainable, it's manageable, it's working for you, your small, their sleep, and the whole family. So yeah, that's who I am, and it's been a long time coming. I spend most of my days, my working day with my practice now, and I thought it'd be really good to give a little bit of idea of how that practice came about. So my background, I came from a massive family. My dad is one of 6, so when we were growing up there was always some party and always some baby in a car seat or on the floor sleeping around, and I was just fascinated. And I think my love of children and babies started really young for me. My mum always used to say I was like a little mother clucker, like with the children, looking after them, holding the babies. I just found it fascinating. So that's where it all started really. I came from a massive family. There was always children about. All my dad's siblings had children, lots of cousins, running around with lots of cousins, and they went on to have babies. So I kind of grew up, really. That's all I've ever really known. And then when I was about, I think I was 18, it was after A-levels, I went to college and I did my NNEB in childhood studies. It was a 2-year course. It was pretty full on, to be honest. I don't remember because it's 23 years ago now. I can't believe that. So I can't really remember much of it, but I do remember it was pretty full on. It was a full-time course. I was at college 5 days a week. The coursework, I've still got the coursework actually. There's loads of coursework and assignments, and it was pretty full on. And we learned everything to do with child development, emotional development, physical development, everything to do with babies and childhood all the way up to 5. I really enjoyed my course. Up until then, I'll be honest, I didn't really feel that, I was 17, 18, what did I know? But I felt that I really hadn't found what I was really passionate about. But as soon as I started that course, it just made so much sense to me. Absolutely loved it. I think I passed it with a distinction. I threw myself into it for 2 years, which is hard when you're 18 and all you want to do is go out and party. I did that too. And before we graduated, we had somebody, I still remember her name, Jemima from British Nannies, come in and give us a talk about nannies. And I remember sitting there and just was captivated by her. I was just like, this sounds amazing. I want to be a nanny. And something that comes up all the time with me is I follow my instincts. I don't know where this has come from, but I always listen to my gut. My gut is good. And I sat there listening to this talk by Jemima, and I was like, this voice popped into my head, I want to be a nanny. She made it sound so glamorous, so fun. I just knew, I was like, this is what I want to do. I was born for this. So I got my dad, because I didn't drive at that time because it took me 5 times to pass my test. So I got my dad afterwards this was way afterwards, like I went and said hello. I said, I want to be a nanny. And she was like, right, come over to my house, we'll get you registered. We can't get you out on the jobs until you've graduated, but we can get you on the books. And then I actually managed to, from there, before I'd even graduated, I'd managed to find, I'd gone for my first interview with a family, 3 children under 5. What was I thinking? And I got the job. So before I'd even graduated, I'd got my first job as a nanny with 3 children under 5. It's crazy. I must have been 19, 20, I think, when I graduated. I'm at that age now where I forget what age I was when I did those things. So yeah, graduated, had a big party. That was amazing. Tripped up on the stage, grabbing my certificate, typical Kerry. But yeah, and went out on my first job, and I came out of, I call it nanny school. I don't mean to sound, because it was a proper full-on 2-year course. It's equivalent to, I can't remember what they call it, but it's an equivalent now to, but it was a pretty full-on course. And I came out and I honestly thought I knew everything. I knew nothing. Went out onto the job, and I should have explained actually when we did the training. They didn't really, it wasn't just on sleep, it was everything to do with childhood. So we learned cooking, nutrition, absolutely everything, how babies develop, emotional. I think I've just all gone through that. We learned everything. So sleep, we did learn about sleep, but it was very small part of it. And what we did learn about it, it was very traditional. Leave them to cry. You're the boss. You're in charge. They're manipulating you. And when I was doing it, I didn't instinctively. I was just like, well, this doesn't feel right, but it's my training. I'm going to stick with it. So anyway, first time on the job, had to put the babies to bed in my care. And what you have to remember is Care It Out did take quite a while to come about. It wasn't that I just found out what I wanted to do, graduated, and then it came about. It was like 10 years later. We're 20 years down the line now. So it was a very slow process. But basically, I learned on the job very quickly that... the other thing we learned at nanny school, which was really interesting, was discipline, like things like the naughty step. We have to remember was Gina Ford Ferber, Super Nanny, were at the pinnacle, at the height of their career back then. And it just didn't sit right. It just instinctively didn't fit right. Like putting the children in, leaving them to cry, ignoring them when they had an emotional outburst, putting them to bed, just leaving them to it when they were asking for support, naughty chair, time out, any of these things. It just didn't make any sense to me. And for a while I did it because I was 19, 20, can't remember how old I was, but 19, 20. And I just thought, well, if I've been trained it must be true. There mustn't be any other way. And you have to remember, I'm that old. There wasn't the internet, or it wasn't like it is today. There was no Instagram, no Facebook, no internet. Everything was done on books. And I don't know, it was just completely different. So I just accepted it, that this is what's going to happen. My training must be right. So I carried on with it for a bit, but I was miserable. I remember trying to settle some of the babies as I went through my career as a nanny, and I spent a long time as a nanny. I pretty much 18, 19 years. Only in the last couple of years left the last family completely to concentrate on Care It Out. So it was a long time. But I would come out of the room, they were crying, calling my name and getting upset, and I was getting hot and sweaty, and I was crying, they were crying. It was miserable. My job was to put these these smalls to bed, and I couldn't do it because I couldn't do it how I was trained. So in the end, I followed my instincts. I was like, this doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel good for them. They're crying, I'm crying. They're sweaty, I'm sweaty. I'm shaking, they're probably shaking. And in the end, I spoke to the parents. I was like, look, I absolutely love my job, but this just doesn't sit right with me. Would you mind if I tried something else? And they were like, to be honest, most of them were like, to be honest, we don't particularly like it either. It goes against our instincts. So I was like, look, I'm not going to be completely out there and try radical things, but I'm just going to try something a little bit different and see if that helps. And I ended up following my instincts. My instincts were always to go into them if they asked for me, get them calm, and then come back out again, or talk to them if they were having, like, they did something naughty. I'd never used time out or anything. I was actually, my nickname was the Gentle Nanny. I didn't realise it was a thing 20 years ago, like taking them out in a sling, and other nannies didn't really want to hang out. I sound like a right sob story now, get your violins out. Like, other nannies didn't particularly want to hang out with me because I thought I was a little bit weird for carrying them around and not disciplining them, but I stuck to my guns because that's what felt good to me. And very slowly over time I realised it worked. I didn't have to leave the babies to cry to get them to nap or to sleep. I could go in and meet their needs when they asked for it, and they would, guess what? They would still go to sleep. They would still sleep well at night time. And then it kind of just stumbled from there. Families would ask me for their advice at night time and at bedtime and overnight time. I started to do a lot of proxy parenting when I was, I think it was 23, 24. Again, can't remember what age I was. 23, 24. All my friends were settling down. They'd finished uni, settled down, and lots of them were getting married and starting having kids, and I was just like, is this it? I just felt instinctively I had so much more that I wanted to do. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing more, that's a whole other podcast. I would love a baby. It's not happening so easy for me now, but yeah, maybe I'll do a podcast that another time. But at 24, I just wanted to travel the world, get drunk and have fun and do my thing. And I was just like, what am I going to do? And then again, one day I make decisions very, very quickly. Somebody was talking, a family I actually was working with at the time. She was like, my aunt has a friend that I was actually giving her some sleep advice, actually. She wasn't the person I worked with, she was the friend. We were just talking on the playground. She was like, my aunt has she places nanny overseas. Why don't you do that? And as soon as she said that, I was like, yep, that's what I want to do. So again, I decided, went home to my mum and dad. No preamble. I was like, I'm going to go and live abroad. I think they'd got to that point where they just didn't even question me anymore. If I say something, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Went for an interview, and again, I got the first job, which was crazy, isn't it? It's really, I'm enjoying telling this story because you don't really think, it was so long ago, you don't really think about it. So yeah, at 24, I went off to Switzerland. I was only meant to be going for a year. I ended up staying there for 6 years, spent pretty much 24 to 30 there. I had a blast. I worked with one family. They had a baby when I got there and 2 older ones. I've always worked for very big families, and I started doing lots of proxy parenting. They travelled a lot. I was often on my own with the baby, and just got loads of experience that way. Everything I learned was on the job. And then when you work with a nanny, that's just your circle. Everybody you meet is a family. They're family. They've got friends, and they would come to me and ask me for advice on how to get them to sleep. And it just started from there, really. And then when I was 30, I moved back. Again, I had that, my gut said to me, you need to leave now. I don't know, it's weird, isn't it? I had such a great time. I skied all winter, skied all winter, swam all summer. I made friends for my family. I call them my family. We're still in contact now, 16 years later. Made loads of friends, loads of families. And I had a really good time. But when I got to 30, I was like, no, okay, it's now time to go back. So I moved back to London, still a nanny at this point. Really, again, found my feet, found a lovely family, did the whole, by now I'd got really confident in how I was putting the babies down for nap and sleep, and I could just do it. And then I met some friends on a nannying job that I'm still really friendly with now. Hi, Rock Salt Consulting, if you're listening. Rock Salt Consulting, if you're listening. And she asked me for some advice on her baby, and she was like, it just worked, Kerry. It was so useful and so helpful. And I think she kind of gave me an ultimatum. She was like, either you do something with this and you have to share it, just do something, anything, just go and share it, or I'm going to. So that was really the catalyst of where Kerry It Out came about. And in the beginning, I was still nannying, and I really, really loved my nannying job. Really, really loved it. Nothing more. It just brought me so much joy. I mean, I'm not perfect. I had days when I was just like, oh, children, I've had enough of my job. Like, I'm no Mary Poppins, or Mary Bobbins as my friends call me, but on the whole, I really, really, really enjoyed it, and I still miss it to some degree. But it just got me thinking. And talking about instincts, actually, I'd forgotten about this. When I went for my last job, the family were absolutely lovely, and instinctively when I went for that interview, something told me that this was going to be my last family. So make the most of it. And again, I was there for 3 years, so I'd already knew when that was ending. I didn't know what I was going on to and what would happen or what would become of me, but I knew that was going to be my last nannying job. I don't know how I knew that. Again, instincts are very powerful, and I just was like, I'm going to give it a go. So again, there's definitely a theme here. We had just signed our mortgage for our new home, buying our first home in London, and I schlepped home to my husband and was just like, I'm going to set up my own business. And again, I don't even think he blinked, because I think people, my friends, family are so used to me. Like, when Kerry's made up her mind, this is what's happening. And it's the same with anything, setting up a podcast, setting up a practice, doing something. When I'm sure, I just go. And he didn't even bat an eyelid. My husband's been really super supportive. So without his support, because that must have really shook him, I certainly wouldn't be here doing what I do now. But he was like, yeah, whatever you want. And in the beginning, I wasn't called Kerry It Out. I was called Kerry Cares Parenting. I really wanted to. I knew that I didn't want to get gentle in there, because that really has already been done, and I just didn't feel that there's nothing wrong with gentle at all. I just wanted something new, something that reflected me. So caring came about. Again, that alliteration, and it was Kerry Cares Parenting for a long time. And I didn't just focus on sleep. I did behaviour, potty training, talking about tantrums. I did everything. It was like a nanny service, and I really enjoyed it. I'll be honest with you, in the beginning, I was so naive. I was like, wow, who wouldn't want to work with me? It's going to be, not that I'm great, but it's going to be great. Like, there was a need for it. I was so confident. How wrong was I? I think I had 2 clients in the first year and made about £100 and lost so much more. Well, didn't lose money, but had spent loads of money on the business. Having my own business, it was totally the hardest and best thing I've ever done, ever. So it took a while, and then it just took a while to find my feet. I started working with families, and it just went from there. And I think the key thing for me, it took a long time. So I think Kerry Cares Parenting came about in 2015. So again, it was a really good 5 years. I don't believe in an overnight success for anything, running a marathon, getting a settled night's sleep, setting up your business. And actually, one thing that I'm really trying to make myself available for is helping other small businesses move forward, like just sharing stuff that I wish somebody told me when I was setting up my business and I'd have known. So yes, it came about, Kerry It Out came about from my experience of being a nanny, and I'm always so honest and upfront with you. I always try my best to do that. I'm not medically qualified. All of my approach comes, this stuff I wasn't really taught this. It's partly part of my training, from my nanny school, and I also went on to do 4 years ago, I think just before I must have gone on to rebranded as Kerry It Out. I mean, that was an epiphany. I'll talk about that in a second. I then went and did an OCN level 4 sleep training as well. So I do have that as well. And I think I use part of my nanny school, I was, as a nanny for 15, 20 years, I worked with so many different families, learnt really quickly that every family, every baby, every toddler is completely different. What works for one family might not work for another. I realised that I'm very, very good at reading people's feelings, listening to people and listening to what they want, and using my instincts. So always very honest. honest that my whole approach comes from my experience, 20 years experience of being a nanny, listening to my instincts and turning my back on my training. People actually, I don't think they ever said it to my face, but they probably thought I was a little bit silly for doing that. Maybe like, you're taught this way, why find another way? But it didn't work for me, and deep down again, that my gut was telling me there's got to be another way. This can't be the only way of doing it. So yeah, that's a little bit about how Carry It Out came about. And nowadays I again, going from Kerry Cares Parenting to Carry It Out. Carry It Out was about 3 years ago. I had an epiphany. I love it. I don't know if you realise this, it is a play on, I love puns, I love words. I did always had when I wasn't playing with my cousins and cuddling the babies, I was always reading a book, and I don't know where I was going with this, but I was always reading a book, and yes, I know, so play on words, and I've always just loved a play on words. I absolutely love it. And Carry It Out is a play on Cry It Out, and I absolutely love it now. It's short, snappy, and yeah, it's just grown. I think just having my experience, getting more confidence as I've gone along, and it's just grown and grown from there, and I absolutely love it. And now I spend I don't nanny anymore. My nanny days are long behind me, and I'm full-time at Care It Out. We've moved out of I worked in my home office for a long time, and now we've had 2 premises. I absolutely love it. I've got my lovely assistant Dawn, some of you might know her, my little admin team, my web team. I absolutely love it, and I'll do it full time. And do you know what? I wouldn't have it any other way. I know this is where I'm meant to be. And now I am really passionate about sharing my experience, my instincts with you to get you and your small to that settled night's sleep without tears, training or techniques. I'd never want a family to feel like I did, like I was going against my instincts and standing out the door, wanting to go outside the bedroom, wanting to go to the babies, but didn't because we've been told that that's what we should do. My approach, I honestly believe there's no right or wrong. It's hard to sum up Care It Out, but I think if I had to, there's no right or wrong. My whole approach is that if it's working for you, all is well. I don't believe that there's this perfect sleep schedule, sleep shift, where they're all going to nap at the same time every single day. I don't believe we've got this expectation that every baby is going to be born with the same personality and temperament. They're not. I've worked with lots of them. They're not. And they're going to all sleep by a set age. They're going to sleep at a set time for a set amount of length of nap. They're all going to sleep 12 hours at night time. They're all going to be settled in the same way. They're all going to be able to make changes in the same way. I don't believe that at all. They're all really different. So my whole approach is not about pushing you or your small to sleep through the night. It's just about supporting you and your small to sleep the best of their ability. So if it's working for you, all is well. Crack on. Bed sharing, room sharing, them in their own room as long as they're past 6 months old. SIDS guidelines very important to me. Breastfeeding, bottle feeding, combi feeding, however you feel you parent. I do believe that changes can be made with care, and that we can get you to a place where sleep is sustainable and working for all of you. And my approach is probably a little bit of everything. For me, everything is linked. So it's a little bit of everything, a little bit of experience, a little bit of science. So again, I'm no scientist. Basic biology, and then just working with your small. And yeah, that's my approach. So my whole approach is Care It Out. It's not Cry It Out, control crying, anything like that. It's not anti them, it's just not my bed bag at all. For me it's about balance. I really wanted something in the middle, and I really feel Care It Out is that. You don't have to, if waiting it out works for you, where you give it time, you don't make any changes, you surrender to what your baby needs in that moment, works for you, absolutely crack on. If something like Gina Ford, Ferber, sleep training, that feels good for you and you feel that's the best thing for your family, absolutely crack on. And then I'm here wavering in the middle somewhere between the two, and it is Care It Out. So there's no leaving them to cry for a set amount of time, not responding to them. It's not always tear-free. Carry It Out is not always tear-free and a piece of cake, but I do believe that we can get to a settled night's sleep without leaving them to cry or doing something that doesn't instinctively feel right for you. So much, I could talk about that all day, but I did want to try and keep this one pretty short if I could. And I'm always happy, again, I always try it and be a completely open book. I'm always happy. If you've got any questions for me, always happy to hear from you, and I'll always try and answer as many as I can personally. I can't always do that, or I will try and put you to a link as well. So today I am on a mission to share, or I call it my sleep shizzle, to share as much as I can, my experience, my expertise. It's really important. I am not an expert. You are 100%. I don't know it all. You never stop learning, and every single family teaches me something. I learn from every single one of you, I never stop learning. I'm always reading, doing new courses, which is really important. But I am very passionate about sharing my knowledge, my experience and my expertise with you, and I try and make my experience this as accessible and available to as many parents as possible. I do it in so many different ways. I have my Instagram, my social media account, so there's lots of free support there. I pretty much do a post a day, not at the weekend but during the day. I do a post a day there. I do a live every Monday on Facebook and Instagram. Absolutely love that. That's a great way to start your week. Grab a coffee, have a sit down, have a chat, have some bed banter, answer as many of your questions as possible. After that, have a podcast, ta-da, that you're listening to. New episode is out every second Tuesday, I think, and I really love it. I get into to be honest, I find this one of the challenging things to do, because I really like connection. I like to eyeball people when I'm talking to them. I know that sounds a little bit weird, but I thrive on feeling connected and helping people and being with people. Though actually I'm an introvert, which is a little bit weird. Somebody had a name for that the other day and I can't remember what it is, when you're part introvert and part extrovert. Answers on a postcard. But I know that you find these useful, so that's why I push myself to do them. And I do. I've really enjoyed this episode. So I've got the podcast every second Tuesday. Have my 2 online e-courses, Bedtime Basics and Bedtime Boundaries. They are a great guide to get you started. And I'll put the links to those in my show notes as well. And then after that, I do offer one-to-one sleep services as well, if you need that. And again, I'll put them in the note. But my day-to-day, I'm in the office 5 days a week, answering emails, questions. It's a pretty full-time job, but I absolutely love it. And it is a mixture of doing all of the stuff that I've just gone through, making e-courses, webinars, podcasts, day-to-day running a business. But the busiest bit is the practice and working one-to-one with families. I'm just looking at my schedule now on the wall, like it is pretty, I don't work back-to-back, but it is pretty busy. So that's what I'm doing day-to-day. I hope you really enjoyed that. I really, really, really enjoyed that. It was really nice just getting it out and going through my story again, and how Carry It Out came about. If you've got any questions, as I said before, please do get in contact with me. I'm actually going to do another episode, hopefully with another sleep consultant, about how to find the best sleep consultant for you. So if you are looking for someone for a little bit of sleep support, it might be worth hanging on for that. But yeah, I'm always happy to hear from you. And now what I'm going to do is, the last 5 minutes, I'm just going to quickly run through these 5 questions and answer them for you. These are questions that you have sent in. So question number 1, what made me so passionate about sleep? Well, as I mentioned in the beginning, I used to do absolutely everything. Behaviour, toilet training, like all aspects of parenting and nannying. But I think what made me so passionate about sleep was, one, it was what I felt. I love helping people, classic people pleaser here. And I noticed that it was sleep that parents that you really struggled the most with, and that's where you really needed my help. So I think that really helped me hone down on my area of expertise. Also, I really, really like sleep as well. I know I don't know how it feels like for you, because nobody does, but I know for me, if I don't have a decent night's sleep, it just impacts everything. And also, I just realised that the difference it makes when you get that sleep, and how it can change. People tell me all the time, it's changed everything. We're having another baby now because we're not so tired, and that makes me so happy. So yeah, I think that's why I'm so passionate about sleep, is because I'm passionate about helping families just parent how they want to, live their life like they want to, and do it the best way that they want to as well. So I think that's where that comes from, and it's a good job because I really love talking about sleep. What were the best parts of being a nanny? Is question number 2. What were the best parts? How long have you got? I could talk about this all day. So many. The stories. I might have to do... Who would like another podcast episode on that? The stories I had from being a nanny. But I think my highlights were being able to travel. This is very selfish, isn't it? But from my point of view, travelling, I would never ever have been able to have afforded to travel like that or live like I did when I went and lived abroad. So that was definitely absolutely up there. Learn so much about me, about other families, and that was great. Feeling that it was hard work, as you know, because you're parents. Working 7 till 7, I had to go on holiday when they went on holiday. Really didn't have that. Well, I did party hard outside of work, but I really threw myself into being a nanny, and I did really, really enjoy it, even though it was hard work. But seeing the children grow, I think that's just like when they walk for the first time, when they talk, when they learn something, and just getting to hang out with them, being outside all day and hanging out with them, and again making a difference with the families that they wanted to go out to work, and they felt that their children were well looked after, in the best place. I loved cooking. I loved hanging out with them. That was just my sense of humour. I think maybe I am an overgrown kid, and yeah, just hanging out with them, being funny, like I love it. And I'm still very, very much in contact with pretty much most of the families that I worked with. They're quite old, like even the last family, the little girl now, she's not so little, she's going into secondary school, has a phone and she texts me. I mean, that is just wild. This is somebody that I used to change their nappy, and now they're sending me text messages. It's crazy. But yeah, best parts of being a nanny, hands down, was watching the children grow, helping the families, and just, yeah, it's hard work but really good fun. What training or qualifications do you have? Always really honest and upfront. I've actually answered this in the bit before. Unfortunately, there isn't anybody can call themselves a sleep consultant. There isn't a formal qualification that you should do in order to call yourself one. Again, I could do a whole other podcast on that. But yeah, my training was the NNEB for 2 years, and then OCN level 4 sleep training, and then all my experience as well. And I think you could have all the qualifications in the world, but I do think you need that experience too. I'm fairly sure that's what makes me a really good sleep consultant, is having that experience, building up, working with lots of different families, different situations, listening, learning. It's everything, isn't it? Do I have a standout baby family, and why? I don't know whether this was as a nanny or a sleep consultant, but I have to say I don't compare. That's just not fair. I take every family, every baby for who they are and where they're at. I think that's so, so important. There are families that really stick with me and you remember them. And yeah, but I think what I would like to say about this is every single family teaches me something every single time. So yeah, I think all of the families I work with stand out. I think it's so hard. I find it really hard reaching out for help. It took me so long to reach out and get an assistant and admin. I thought I had to do it all by myself. So I think even just reaching, I think you're all flipping amazing, and just reaching out for help if you need it, I think it's such a big thing. So yeah, all the families and babies I've met stand out because they're uniquely them. Oh, I sound like such a soppy idiot, don't I? And then, how did I create a caring solution when so many advise crying? So question number 5, last one. How did I create a caring solution when so many advise crying? I think I've already answered it, but I think I just knew deep down there had to be another way. Control crying, sleep training, leaving them when they were crying just didn't make any sense to me, and it went against my instincts. It instinctively didn't feel right, and for someone that's always followed their gut, it didn't make any sense. So I don't think I went out and purposely created it, if that makes sense. I like to think Care It Out found me, and this is what I was meant to be doing. But I think the way it came about, Care It Out came about, was that I was stubborn. I don't want to go against my instincts and go against my gut. I knew it didn't feel right, and I just knew there had to be another way. Even if it took me years to find it, I was passionate about helping it make sense to, like, the sleep what I was doing. I'm somebody that if I'm doing something, it has to make sense to me. I cannot do something if I don't understand the logic behind it. And sleep training, or how I was trained, didn't make any sense to me. So I had to find something that just, for me, it just wasn't a choice. So I think it was hard. And as I said before, lots of other nanny circles, they're quite tight and I wanted to hang out with the children. I really enjoyed it. I sound like a loner, don't I? And they didn't particularly want to hang out with me because they thought I was really permissive and just a bit weird because it was a little bit out there 20 years ago. But I'm really glad I did. So I think I created a caring solution because I listened to my instincts and because I knew there was a different way. And again, I'm always learning new things that work. And yeah, I don't know it all. I think that's really important. But that's definitely how it came about. Right, I really hope you enjoyed that. I wanted to keep it short, but it's quite a long one. But I really hope you enjoyed it. Let me know, and I will see you in a couple of Tuesdays. Big love and sleep solidarity. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to me, your host, Kerry Secker, on the Care It Out Sleep Show. I really hope you found the podcast reassuring, informative, and a little bit fun. If you did, please don't forget to subscribe to the show below, and I'd be so grateful if you could leave me some fabulous feedback. I always love hearing from you, and one lucky listener will win lifetime access to my Bedtime Basics e-course every single month. My next podcast episode will be out in 2 weeks' time, but if you can't wait for more of my sleep shizzle, you can find me over on Instagram at Care It Out Sleep Consultant. I update my sleep squares and speak sleep there on the daily. Big love and sleep solidarity to you all.